wish there was a way where I didn't have to sit down and create a newsletter from scratch every week. In fact, I wish there was an automated solution where my newsletter automatically points to all my other content pieces without actually me having to create the newsletter. Thankfully for you, I created that solution. Hey everyone, this is Tina with Content Creators Club, and I help creators like you automate your content traffic and income. But before we get started, I need to let you know you need to go ahead and check out the freebie in the description. It is my plug and play content database to help you store, track, and organize all your content. You're going to want to check it out. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into today's agenda. So the first thing that we're going to start off is we're going to talk about atomic newsletters, or just newsletters in general, and why they're important for you to have in your business. The second piece that we're going to talk about is how do you actually build an automated newsletter that is truly set it and forget it. So I'm super excited to get into it. Now, there are two types of newsletters that a creator can create. They can create atomic newsletters or a minimalist newsletter, where basically it's a very simple to the point newsletter where it can either point to links, resources, things like that. Think of a curated newsletter to point to specific resources. Or there is the second newsletter where they're actually giving a whole long form content piece. Now, when we're in a society where attention is the new currency and we're all competing for attention, I honestly will bet that atomic newsletters will perform way better than long form newsletters. That's just my personal opinion. In fact, you can see all these open rates for all my atomic newsletters. So this begs the question, why do creators need to have a newsletter? Here's the thing, social media is not going away. However, it is becoming quite difficult for creators to get noticed on these platforms. They're competing with algorithms. They're competing with individuals that are in the same niche. It is a very competitive landscape when it comes to social media. But you know what's not a competitive landscape? Your own newsletter. What your goal should be going forward as a creator is it should be taking that audience from social media and converting it to your own audience so that you're able to contact them at any point in time. Doesn't matter the platform that you're on. And that's where newsletters come into play. Now this begs the second question of how do you actually start one? Well, in order for you to start a newsletter, you need the content, you need the traffic, which is via your social media audience, and you need your own audience, your own platform in order to connect and engage with them. That could otherwise be known as email service providers, or often the acronym is ESPs, email service providers. And basically the goal from you is to take that social media audience and transfer them to your email service provider. Now, there are many different email service providers that you can go ahead and sign up for. There are Substack, there's Beehive, there's Ghost, there's MailerLite, there's ConvertKit, but choose the platform that works best for you. Now, let's shift our focus back to the two types of newsletters. Now, I'm going to focus a ton on this video on atomic newsletters because I think that is where our attention economy is going. They like short, they like snappy, it's getting right to the point. So atomic newsletters is basically a curated content piece where basically you are taking your best content, or you're taking links, resources, all those things, and you're curating a newsletter to tell people more information about it. A person that does a really great job at it is Jamie from Minimalist Hustler. I really recommend you check out his newsletter. Now, the other piece is that you need to figure out how to actually create a curation schedule. Now, the one benefit that you have as a social media content creator is that you create content. Now, instead of you relying on the platform in order to push your content, get seen more people, you can actually take your own audience from your email service provider and actually push it to your content pieces. And so what ends up happening is that everyone who's on my list, they're going to get, pushed to the places that I want their attention to go to, which is my YouTube platform, my blog article, and to a freebie collaboration that I'm working with, right? And so this is a curated piece that I don't need to sit down and actually curate because I've created an automation to do just that. So we're going to go into the automation right now. All right, so let's go ahead and get into today's automation. So I really broke down this automation into 3 steps. And the first step that we're going to really talk about is deciding your content pieces. Since this is a curated newsletter, we really need to decide what actually goes into that curation piece. So for purposes of this example, I've decided to do a YouTube video and in addition to our blog article as a way for us to curate our content pieces to create in our automated newsletter. The second thing that we're going to be talking about is is how to actually upload these content pieces into what's something called an RSS feed. Think of an RSS feed as really just one central place where you can add all your content to, and then basically you have your email provider pull from that RSS feed to send automatically to your email list. We're going to get into the gritty details on what that looks like. And then the third thing that we're going to talk about is actually what to do in order to trigger the RSS feed so that we can actually send those emails and create our automated newsletter. Now we're going to use a MailerLite walkthrough because I personally use MailerLite and I think it's the best email marketing platform for you to go ahead and get started with. So with that being said, let's go ahead into the first piece, which is triggering our YouTube curation piece in the newsletter. And really, I went ahead and actually tested this workflow just to make sure everything works. So what our event is going to be, it's going to be a new video in channel. So for our YouTube. So when we actually create a new video in YouTube and it's actually uploaded, we're going to go ahead and actually trigger this workflow in Zapier. So that exactly is it. We have the trigger where it's new video in channel. And then we're gonna go ahead and hook up our YouTube account. I've already went and go ahead and do this. It's fairly simple, very straightforward. And then we're gonna actually talk about the trigger in terms of what channel is this automation gonna be looking at in order to trigger this workflow. So ideally, I'm assuming you're driving your email traffic to your YouTube video. So you're gonna wanna use your channel as the trigger. So in order for you to actually find your channel ID, what you're gonna go ahead and do is you're actually gonna go to YouTube, and then what you're going to do from there is once when you're on YouTube, you're going to go to advanced settings. I'm not going to bring it up because I don't want to show my channel ID, but you go to advanced settings and then you're going to go ahead and select the channel ID for your video. So once when you go ahead and add your channel ID into the trigger, what's going to happen is you're going to actually test the event and you're going to see all the records that actually show your most recent YouTube videos. So for purposes of the example, we're just going to go ahead and work through this. So we're going to choose the first record, continue with selected record. And now we're going to go into the second piece that I mentioned earlier is we're going to actually upload it into the feed, right? So basically we're going to create an item in a feed, create an RSS feed so that our channel can actually go into our email. We can drive traffic from our email to our YouTube channel. So whenever we actually create a feed, I highly recommend for you to actually create a actual name to the feed. This is just for test purposes, but basically you want to have the same name whenever you're adding curation pieces to your newsletter. It's going to make sense when I get to the blog article piece, but you just want to keep in mind the name. Now we're only going to fill the requirements in terms of what actually we want to do with this feed. So the item title, I just went ahead and selected the YouTube title. If you want to go ahead and do that, you're going to actually just see the data. As you can see, the title matches up to this. And then you do the same thing for source URL. When you're actually creating this Zapier, you're going to see the source URL be exactly the Zapier website. Definitely recommend to change the website to the URL that you want the email to point to. So I went ahead and actually deleted that and just put it in the YouTube URL right here. And then description, you can go ahead and actually add a description that works for you. I know some people, what they do is that they take their YouTube description and then they'll send it to AI and ask what description to add into it for this purposes of this, but it's really whatever you decide. We're just going to use the same description that we have within our video. So we have that right there. And then I always like to do the pub date as now because we just want to add to the feed and then go from that point on. So we're going to go ahead and press continue. And then when you actually test the data, I've already tested this, but essentially you're just going to press test data. And then if it says no data available, don't be alarmed. It just means that it actually sent to the RSS feed. So that is how you actually trigger a YouTube flow to add to your newsletter. Let's go ahead and walk through what it looks like for Medium and blog articles. So we're going to be taking a similar concept that we did with YouTube to Medium. So when I created this Medium workflow, what we're actually going to use to trigger this is actually an RSS feed. So we're going to trigger with an RSS feed and we're going to add to an RSS feed. It will make sense in a second. But basically, I personally use Medium as my blogging platform. And whenever I add articles or publish articles, it goes into the feed of Medium. So I want to pull that content from the Medium feed and actually funnel it down to my newsletter feed. So what I'm going to do if I ever need to find a feed, especially if you're a Medium writer, all you have to do is actually take your URL name and then put /feed, and then it would work perfectly for you. So let's just walk through what this actually looks like. But basically the trigger is going to be new item in feed, press continue, and then you're just taking the feed URL and moving it from here. If you have LastPass, it will auto add this password for you, but you don't need to do that. So anyways, we're gonna go ahead and select continue, and then it's actually gonna put really pull all the most recent articles that I published within my Medium blog. So we just pulled the most recent article. We're going to use that as our test data, continue with selected record. Same process that we're going to do in our last video or in our last YouTube trigger workflow. But remember how I mentioned we want to use the same name. So test feed for YouTube was the same feed name as we use in our YouTube workflow. So we're going to use that same name also in our Medium workflow because we just want to add all this content into one feed, and then we can actually just pull it into our newsletter. So basically what this is doing is when you are creating all these triggers, you're actually just grabbing content from all your content areas and you're just putting it in one place. That's what this RSS feed is doing. It's pulling it in one piece or one place so that your newsletter can go ahead and grab all that data from one place instead of needing to grab all the data from multiple sources. It's just grabbing all the content from one source. So again, in terms of title, we're just using the title that we're using for the article. And then for source URL, you're going to change the Zapier link with actually the source link. So we have that right here. And then we're going to go ahead and do content. So check out our latest article. If you wanted to change that up, you could, but I just really like to keep this simple. So same thing we're going to do is we're going to do now as the pub date, go ahead and press continue. And then we already tested this, but basically no data available is actually a good thing. So it's not a bad thing. Now, let me show you what this is actually looking like behind the scenes. So we went ahead and added all our content pieces into one central RSS feed. So now we're going to go into MailerLite and we're actually going to create our campaign. So we go ahead and go to create campaign. You're going to go ahead and select RSS campaign. I would just name this as Atomic Newsletter, or whatever name for you. That's mostly for internal purposes. And then I like to do, something like their personalization. I like to do this person's names roundup or content roundup. Whatever, if you have actually a newsletter name, then maybe you want to include that there. And then you could do a pre-header where it could be something where it talks about what this newsletter is going to do. You could just say, I'm just going to say test newsletter because we're just using this as a test. You're going to add the recipients for the individuals that you're going to actually send this to, and then you're going to go ahead and set up the RSS settings. So now we're going to go ahead and go into the RSS settings piece. So RSS feed URL, you know how I mentioned we're actually taking all of that content, putting it into one RSS feed. Well, this is the time where we actually want to call upon that RSS feed. So since it has the same name, we're going to go back to our actual name. We're going to go ahead and press copy that to ourselves. And then essentially what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and paste that. And then you're going to choose the days that you want to send this article or send this newsletter. Now, my personal cadence on when I send an automated newsletter is actually once a week, mostly because I don't want to send it every day because I don't want to spam with with content that's they've already seen. So I always like to add to the RSS feed and then once a week just have one mass email saying all my content pieces and things like that. So I could just do every week. I personally do Sunday since it's my Sunday content creator club. So you could choose the time if you want to 10. Let's just use an example. And then this is really important. You actually want to only have a trigger for new posts. And the reason why I say that is if you are, let's just say, on a content hiatus and you are taking time away from your business and you haven't actually posted any content, well, if you're not adding anything to this RSS feed, then it actually won't send anything. So you just want to make sure that you're only sending new content to your audience members. So if you want to add a notification here on just a confirmation email, you can, but for purposes, we're just going to walk through here. And then we're going to go ahead and choose a content feed. We're going to start from scratch as just an example. So I went ahead and actually cleaned up a little bit of the auto email that they have templates. So basically, if you wanted to add an RSS feed when you're starting from scratch, you can go ahead and do blog and RSS and just put that into here. But this is exactly it. So I just wanted to show you what it actually looks like when you want to actually take your content pieces and create an automated newsletter. Now, if you want to go ahead and change it up in terms of the content, the style, the background, in terms of even how many items you want to show, you can do that right here. So definitely recommend for you to play around with the settings that work best for you. So with that being said, that is the A to Z walkthrough on how I was able to take my content pieces, and we used Medium as well as YouTube as an example, put it all into an RSS feed so that we can go ahead and create a curated automated newsletter for our audience. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Make sure to grab the freebie in the description below, and I'll see you then.